All right, so we're back and ready to dive in.
Ready when you are.
Awesome. Today we're looking at Motherson Sumi Wiring India Ltd's Q2 FY25 performance.
Should be interesting.
Definitely. Looks like someone really wants to get the full picture. They've given us a whole stack, press release, investor presentation, even the auditor's report.
Wow, the whole works. Well, we're going to make sure they understand it all.
Exactly. We're going to cut through the financial jargon and zero in on what really matters.
You know, like how they're managing that impressive revenue growth, even as the industry is kind of flatlining.
And don't forget that debt-free claim, while they're still carrying all those lease liabilities, we'll definitely be unpacking that.
Oh, yeah, there's some head scratchers in there for sure.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. Big picture, what's the overall financial health of Motherson Sumi Wiring India Ltd looking like based on these Q2 FY25 results?
Well, if we're looking at their unaudited financials, their revenue sits at a very healthy INR 2,326 crore for Q2.
Okay, and how does that compare to last year?
That's a 10.3% increase year over year for the quarter and a 7.9% increase year over year for the half year.
Wow, those are some pretty significant jumps.
Right. And especially considering that passenger vehicle volume growth in India is practically flat.
So they're really outperforming the market then.
Definitely seems that way. Gotta ask, though, what's fueling this success?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
Well, the investor presentation highlights higher content per vehicle as a major driver. They're not just making simple wiring harnesses anymore. Motherson Sumi's weaving in more complex systems.
Like what kind of systems?
Things like sensor technology and, advanced driver assistance features, all that good stuff.
Ah, so they're tapping into those high-demand areas.
Exactly. Even though overall vehicle sales are stagnant, they're finding ways to make more money per vehicle.
Smart move. So
Yeah.
they're basically moving up the value chain.
You got it. They're also pouring money into new facilities. Remember those greenfield ones we mentioned?
Right. Those brand new production sites. That can't be cheap.
Not at all. And that actually ties into the dip we saw in the press release.
You mean the profitability dip?
Yeah, exactly. Their EBITDA is down a bit, about 1.2% year over year.
Okay.
But you got to remember, building new facilities from scratch is a huge investment. Motherson Sumi is attributing this dip to those expansion costs.
So they're taking a hit on profits now to set themselves up for bigger gains later.
Basically, yeah. It's a calculated risk, for sure.
A long game.
Exactly. And it could really pay off if their prediction of increased demand pans out.
Makes sense. But speaking of risks, let's talk about something that raised an eyebrow for me.
Oh, what's that?
Their debt-free claim. The investor presentation makes a big song and dance about it, but then I see these lease liabilities listed in the financials.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So help me out here. How can they be debt-free if they have all these financial obligations?
Okay, so this is where understanding the nitty-gritty of financial reporting comes in. You see, while Motherson Sumi might not have traditional bank loans or whatever, they do have substantial commitments tied to those leases.
Leases for their facilities, equipment, all that.
Right. And under accounting standard Ind AS 116, those leases are treated differently than traditional debt.
So it's kind of a technicality.
In a way, yeah. They can technically claim to be debt-free while still having big financial commitments.
Interesting. Makes you wonder how many other companies are playing that same game.
Could be a lot more than you'd think.
Definitely something for investors to be aware of. Always read the fine print, right?
Absolutely. Don't just take things at face value.
Now, I know we were talking about risks earlier, but let's not forget about the impact of raw material costs.
Oh, yeah, that's huge, especially in this industry.
And I think the investor presentation mentioned something about copper, didn't it?
You're right, they did. Copper is like the lifeblood of wiring harnesses. It's crucial.
Right, so any price swings there could really affect them.
For sure. And the presentation actually noted that while copper prices dipped earlier in the quarter, they're showing signs of climbing back up.
So it's a roller coaster.
Pretty much. Up, down, up. Who knows where it'll go next. But it's definitely something we need to keep our eyes on because it could impact their bottom line.
Agreed. So basically, copper price is down. Good for Motherson Sumi. Copper price is up. Not so good.
Exactly. It's a bit of a tightrope walk for them.
Makes sense. Well, we've covered a lot of ground already. Revenue, expansion plans, debt claims, and now this whole copper conundrum. Before we move on, though, can you give us a little preview of what we should be looking for in the coming months? What are some key things to watch when it comes to Motherson Sumi's performance?
Sure thing. So it's pretty clear that they're placing big bets on growth.
And are willing to invest heavily to achieve it.
Exactly. So we'll need to track the progress of those new facilities, see how those are coming along.
And keep tabs on how their strategy of offering higher content per vehicle plays out in the market.
Absolutely. That's going to be key. And of course, those external factors we discussed will also play a major role.
Like those fluctuating copper prices, right?
Yep. Those and the overall health of the Indian passenger vehicle industry. We'll have to monitor those trends very carefully.
Great points. Well, let's pause there for a second. Okay,
Okay.
so we're back.
Back again.
Before the break, we were talking about Motherson Sumi Wiring India Ltd., their impressive revenue growth, and those strategic investments.
Yeah, big moves for sure.
For sure. Now let's get into some of the finer details.
Time to get granular.
Right. I mean, I always find those auditors' reports so interesting. Like you can really uncover some hidden gems in there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, for example, this report mentions Motherson Sumi has a lot of deferred tax assets.
Deferred tax assets. Okay, now you're just using big words to scare me.
No. It's actually pretty straightforward. Essentially, they've paid more in taxes than they currently owe, which creates this potential credit for future liabilities.
So, like a credit they could use later on if their tax bill gets too high?
You got it. Think of it as like a financial cushion. It can give them an edge down the road.
Okay, so they've got this potential tax advantage.
Hmm.
What else does the report tell us?
Well, it also highlights their major investments in property, plant, and equipment, which, lines up perfectly with their expansion strategy.
Yeah, they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
So no doubt about it, they're gearing up for some serious growth.
No doubt.
Also, I noticed the auditor's report mentions that Motherson Sumi doesn't have any subsidiary or associate or joint venture companies.
Right. That's interesting. It paints a pretty clear picture of their structure.
So they're keeping it simple, just focusing on their core operations.
Yep, no messy web of interconnected entities to deal with.
Straightforward. Which, speaking of straightforward, let's circle back to that debt-free claim for a second.
Yes, the elephant in the room.
It's technically accurate, sure, but it doesn't tell the whole story, does it? Do you think this could potentially mislead investors who don't really dig into those financial statements?
It's a valid point. I mean, transparency is super important in financial reporting.
Right.
And while Motherson Sumi hasn't done anything wrong, per se, the way they present that debt-free status could be seen as a bit misleading.
Yeah, especially for those who don't fully understand those lease liabilities.
Exactly. It begs the question, shouldn't companies be held to a higher standard of clarity, especially when they use terms that are open to interpretation like that?
Totally. Investors need to have all the facts to make informed decisions.
Couldn't agree more. It's not enough to just be technically compliant. The information has to be clear and easy to understand.
So that no crucial details are hidden in the fine print.
Exactly.
Right, it's a valuable lesson for everyone, really. Always look beyond the surface, ask those tough questions, don't just take anything at face value. Now, you mentioned supply chain disruptions earlier.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I noticed the materials didn't really dive into how Motherson Sumi's handling those challenges.
Yeah, they didn't go into specifics on
But, I mean, considering all the global craziness, semiconductor shortages, logistics nightmares, rising raw material costs, it's safe to say they're not immune, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're a huge player in the automotive supply chain. They're definitely feeling the pressure.
So even though they don't explicitly say it, we can assume they're dealing with some supply chain headaches.
For sure, which actually makes their revenue growth even more impressive, right?
You're telling me, if they can pull off those numbers while facing those challenges, imagine what they can do when things smooth out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Makes you wonder what kind of strategies they're using to manage it all. Maybe strategic sourcing,
Yeah.
smarter inventory management, who knows?
Yeah, must be doing something right.
All right, so we've gone over the financials, explored the auditor's report, even analyzed the impact of rising copper prices.
We've been busy.
For sure. But there's still one big question looming.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Is Motherson Sumi Wiring India Ltd. playing it safe and steady? Or are they rolling the dice, prioritizing growth over immediate profits?
The age-old question.
I mean, they're making bold moves, investing in new facilities, aiming for higher value products, all while navigating this crazy global economic landscape.
It's a tightrope walk, for sure.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
one wrong step, and, well, it could be a long fall.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly.
Right.
But, sometimes you have to take those calculated risks to achieve those big long-term goals. And from what we've seen in these documents, Motherson Sumi seems to be approaching their growth strategy pretty carefully.
They seem to have a good plan in place.
Yeah, they're not just blindly chasing growth.
No, they're being strategic, looking at market trends, listening to their customers, trying to carve out their place in the industry.
That's what I love about these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not just about the numbers themselves. It's about understanding the story behind them.
The why behind the what.
Exactly.
I
It gives you a glimpse into a company's strategy, their challenges, their aspirations.
feel like a window into their soul, their financial soul.
Huh? Perfectly put. And honestly, every deep dive is a learning experience, a chance to question, to challenge assumptions, and to refine our understanding of how businesses operate in this wild world of ours.
I couldn't agree more.
So there you have it. We started with a stack of financial documents, and now we have a much clearer understanding of Motherson Sumi Wiring India Ltd's current position.
And where they might be headed.
But remember, this is just the beginning of your exploration.
Keep digging.
Exactly. Keep asking those tough questions. You never know what other insights you might discover along the way. Happy exploring. So, the million-dollar question, right? Are they playing it safe, or are they taking a big gamble by going for growth over profits? What do you think?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Only time will tell, really. I mean, there's no doubt they're making some bold moves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Investing in those new facilities, focusing on those higher value products, all while, the global economy is being a bit unpredictable. It's a balancing act, isn't it? They want to expand, but they also need to stay financially stable, like walking a tightrope.
Exactly. One misstep, and, well, it could have a big impact.
Yeah, the stakes are high.
But remember, high risk, high reward, right? I mean, often, calculated risks are necessary for big long-term success.
True, true.
And from what we've seen, it looks like Motherson Sumi's approaching this whole growth strategy pretty thoughtfully with a lot of planning.
So they're not just blindly throwing money at it and hoping for the best.
No, not at all. They're making strategic decisions, considering the market trends, understanding what customers want, really trying to figure out their place in this industry.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives, right? We get to go beyond just the numbers and really understand the story they're telling.
Yeah, like what's the strategy? What challenges are they facing? What are their goals? It's fascinating.
Totally. It gives you a much deeper understanding of how they're operating in this crazy business world. Exactly. And remember, every deep dive is a chance to learn, to ask those tough questions, challenge your own assumptions about how businesses work.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it, folks. We started with a mountain of financial documents, and we've come out the other side with a much clearer picture of Motherson Sumi Wiring India Ltd, where they stand now and where they might be headed.
Lots to think about.
Definitely. But remember, this is just the start of your journey. Keep digging, keep asking those questions, keep learning.
The journey never ends.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll uncover some hidden gems along the way. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
Until next time.